Today is March 26th. We are going to be taking a look at the April 2022 Nemesis Cup meta a week before it goes live. So, looking at the infographic on your left, you're going to be able to see that it is another 6 Pokemon format, but rather than just picking 6 Pokemon from a large pool, it will be pick one of 10 fighters, pick one of 10 anti-fighters, and pick 4 of the 7 types of Pokemon, but it has to be dual typed, but its dual type cannot possess any of these other 6 types, and Escavalier is additionally banned. So it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. For the most part, a lot of people are going to struggle team building in these types of metas. Another one that we had was like the Brawler Cup, where you had to pick one from every category or weight class. It's problematic. Use PV Poke. This is a very difficult meta. But on stream, I've actually found a way to break it down for myself, and I will be very briefly going over that for you. So, what does it mean by fighter and anti-fighter? So fighter, I like to categorize fighters as a role rather than a fighting type, but obviously it borrows from the fighting type name. And what does fighting type be? Steel, rock, dark, normal. Those are some of the core meta types that fighting types beat. So as long as a similar Pokemon or a similar moveset or just Pokemon with similar matchups do similar things, such as beating Stunfisk, beating Bastion, beating Umbreon, they serve the purpose of a fighter. And in this case, Flygon and Quagsire are technically fighters. A lot of the time we substitute anti-tanks, anti-steels with water, ground, and a variety of fighting type moves, not just fighting type Pokemon. So if I were to slap a Vigoroth in here, it would be no different than the Obstagoon that you see available as your first choice. So that is the fighter role. So the anti-fighter role follows the same kind of mindset of, as long as you beat fighting type Pokemon or fighting type substitutes, it fills a very same role. I call them flyers. I'll probably call them flyers here and then and forget to call them anti-fighters because I don't like the anti-naming system. It gets confusing for different reasons, obviously. But you've also seen that I've categorized each Pokemon into kind of these clockwise win and then anti-clockwise lose system. So very briefly, Blaziken would beat Lucario, Lucario would beat the dark types, and then the dark types would beat Glade, because Glade's primary fast move would be Confusion and Psychic and double resisted, and then all the way around beating fighting, and then some of these fighters would have to beat the ground types, being Poliwrath, right? So same thing on the right side. I've kind of made the Pokemon beat each other in a clockwise fashion. And then what you see in the black kind of brackets, it's just the Pokemon that kind of serve closer roles than the other ones. So when we look at fighters, we have fighters that take super effective damage from other fighters for the most part. You have Glade being on its own because it has, non-fighting type moves as its primary moveset. You have Blaziken doing its own thing. One of the key things it does is it beats bug types. And then you have the ground types, and then you have a variety of, the water, ice, fighting, grass moves that between Poliwrath and, I can't remember Chestnut's name, I guess. I believe that's what it's called. And then, those would do similar things, similarly weird things in some cases. And you can see the same thing on the right side with anti-fighters. So these are the 2 roles. These will be picked trying to synergize between both roles. I'll explain a little more about that later. But let's talk about the remaining types. So now that you know that we have 2 roles, what do we fill with the rest of the types? What do we fill with the 4 other very important Pokemon that we need on our team? So we are looking at the way I categorize Pokemon from based on probably popularity, strength, effectiveness, specifically against the fighters and anti-fighters. So on the very right side, you see steel and rock type. It's very simple, very straightforward. You take super effective damage from almost every fighter. Your relevance is immediately going to drop. A lot of water types have relevance based off of their dual typings. You don't see Blastoise in the Open Great League, but you see Swampert because that ground type is very unique, very helpful for resistances. So fire just weak, dark taking a lot of damage, and then in the middle neutral zone you have ice, which is a very rare typing in this meta. Grass, which is also unique for a couple reasons, and it's dual type reasons as well. A lot of poison are also grass type. And then electric deals a lot of neutral damage across the board, super effective to some things, resisted to very few things. And then you have psychic. It's relevant, but once again, no. Part of the problem where psychic lies in is a lot of psychic types are single type psychic, such as Deoxys, Hypno, Mew, and Cresselia. So we won't be seeing too many of those, but we will have maybe something like Malamar or Bronzong. I think those are relevant. Poison, Bug, these two have a very big play in the meta because they resist fighting. So for the exact opposite reason of why Steel, Dark is bad, Bug and Poison resist almost everything that comes from the fighter category. And not all of them go poorly against anti-fighters as well. There's only 2 real flying type Pokemon in the anti-fighter category, being Jumpluff and Noctowl. So Bug and Poison can probably be a good pick against Frostlass. Actually, not even bad against Jumpluff. Does pretty good against does really good against the fairies, actually. And then last but not least, Dragon. You have bans against Fairy, and you have very few Steel types, as well as very few good Ice type Pokemon. As a result, Dragons are kind of free roam, unless people pick Dedenne or Mawile or Poliwrath. But then again, if you pick one of these Pokemon, that means you cannot pick another fighter or anti-fighter. So that's where this meta becomes difficult. No other Pokemon are like these fighters and anti-fighters. First reason, they are banned. And when I say banned, I mean by type regulations, they should not be allowed here. But because of the way they formatted the cup, you can think of slot 1 and 2 as your ban evasions. You're allowed to use things that are restricted, but you only are limited to one, and one of certain category as well. So problem number 2 with this meta, with this team build, is that you're only allowed to pick one fighter and one anti-fighter. Anti-fighter, we mentioned how it's more diverse. It's easy to find a way to beat fighting type Pokemon. But as for fighters, in other metas, you can pick something like Medicham or Scrafty. You can cover ghost type weaknesses if you need to, and then you could cover fighting type weaknesses if you need to. In this meta, if I were to pick Flygon, I have an ice weakness. If I were to pick a counter user, I would have a bug weakness to a certain extent, right? Or bug poison or bug electric. Specifically, Galvantula is what I'm thinking of. And Galvantula is one of the rare occasions where it would be a better suited Pokemon for the anti-fighter role than something restricted within it, such as Dedenne. So what is going to make non-restricted Pokemon valuable is its ability to fill these roles as a fighter or anti-fighter. Malamar is going to have a fighting type move, superpower, and then you're going to be looking for anti-fighter potential in Beedrill, Galvantula, maybe in Fortress, something like that. And even anti-Flygon, anti-ground with Walrein. So what's valuable what's the most valuable thing in this meta is picking your limited role Pokemon. Second is finding out which Pokemon you can use to substitute types of fighters and anti-fighters where your primary fighter or anti-fighter does not. So what is going to happen in the meta, in my opinion, is that most people's restricted picks are going to be very different. People are going to test, enjoy, find success with different combos of fighters and anti-fighters, but the rest of the picks 3 through 6 are going to be very similar. It's going to be things that, like I mentioned, Galvantula, Beedrill. I found, tanks like Ferrothorn and Polion pretty useful dealing with the fairy types, which is kind of a difficult problem if somebody chooses them, but you also have to consider whether someone will choose them because they are restricted picks. So it's very complicated. Take your time to choose which two combos and which Pokemon you might want to consider as substitutes.